Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first February weekly video message. Today is Friday, February 4th. Let me pull up my screen here so we can do a little screen sharing and you can see what we're talking about today. So starting off with our shout outs and recognitions, just had a couple. One to Wilma Wu, who's guidance counselor for our students with the last name of LJ through San. And it simply said she is awesome. We agree. There was also another level of awesomeness. I'm not sure if this was the same people or somebody just a coincidence having awesome in both of these, but wanted to shout out to the French teachers for their kindness and awesomeness. Those French teachers are Muriel von Stein, Kelly Ronsheimer, and Madeline Stanwood. Wanted to also give you an update on our staff medical emergency that we had the other day. It's been a pretty hectic week, very emotional and up and down. But our staff member is doing really well. They are awake, alert, they're resting. We still don't have a lot of information about what, how long they may be out or what kind of future is going on. But the medical team we are hearing is taking very good care of him. And we've been speaking with the staff member's family and wife, and they have nothing but positive things to say, and they just wanted to again they were here today, as a matter of fact, and wanted to give appreciation to the students and the staff who were all involved, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. But our kids were great, and so again, thank you to all of you for raising such wonderful children. They reacted in a really great way. Obviously, in a situation like this, it's really not sure what to do sometimes, but even those who didn't do anything were great because they got out of the way when they needed to, and they were helpful and supportive to each other. So we really appreciate that. And again, a special shout out to even one of our students who ran and got a couple of teachers and then got me. And we were able to start doing the work that we needed to do to save this teacher's life. And so you wanted to, again, shout out to all the teachers who stepped in and did what they were supposed to do and helped us get the system going. But a big special shout out to Dan Newsom and Luis Garces. We all were in there performing CPR. We also had to use the AED system. And so it was a very touch and go situation, but I'm glad to say it's all gone in a good situation. We know that our staff members are trained in these situations. We hope to never have to use them, but I'm glad all the training kicked in here. And if you've never been trained, I would highly encourage you to go get trained, because you never know what could happen to a loved one, a child, and a parent, a grandparent, even somebody in the grocery store. So I know I don't regret getting any of this training, and I would have been totally lost without it. So again, thank you to everybody who helped out. Thank you everybody who's been sending their prayers and positive thoughts and wishful thinking. It's getting through, and it's getting through to our teachers. So again, thank you for all of that. Going to move on to our questions, concerns, suggestions, and stuff. There was a concern in here about an AP government class where there was some information being talked about in regards to voting trends. And again, this was in particular to Israeli or Jewish Americans or immigrants in terms of what was going on. And the parent and student found this information to be a little bit disturbing. And so I went and talked to the teacher, the department lead, and we found out who the teacher was and talked to the teacher. And there was, just so you know, there is stuff in the AP government curriculum about talking about voting trends among different demographics and different, areas. And so this was something that the teacher was quoting. And so very concerned that, that the student walked away feeling targeted or hurt by that, and the family's upset by it. I definitely would ask you to reach out to the teacher. I don't know who you are because this was anonymous. But teacher is aware of it, but obviously they want to make sure that everyone's okay and that they're able to straighten things out and have a good conversation if needed. So again, I would encourage you to reach out to the teacher. She'll be happy to talk to you. There was a statement in here saying, please consider changing the racial justice agenda to the Love Your Skin program that is inclusive and collaborative. I have to admit, I'm not familiar with this particular program. I even Googled it. I didn't find anything that was connected to it, so I can't really tell you. I don't know anything about it, so I couldn't tell you whether it was a good thing or not. But I'm kind of assuming this is in response to some of the advisory materials I sent home last week, or some of the anti-racism, anti-bias work that we've been doing. But please know that the goal of that work is to build empathy and connections among our students, as well as to celebrate our differences. It is not to put somebody down or say this is, one race is better than another, or be upset with yourself because you're part of this race. That's not what we're doing. And again, if kids are feeling that way, or someone feels that they're feeling that way, have them come talk to me. I'd be happy to hear their feedback and try and figure out where that's coming from, but that's not what we're trying to do. But again, we are kind of in an essence teaching folks to be okay in their skin, and that one person's skin is not better than the other. So again, I understand that there's some controversy in this, and that some people may or may not agree with some of the stuff that we're doing here. But ultimately, we are trying to build students who can make connections and can be part of the world together. So we've seen a lot of really good results because of it as well, though. So, but again, let me know if there's anything more specific. Last week there was a question about not letting adults take over club activities and, let the kids do the stuff and get the adults get out of the way. So I said, hey, can you give me some examples? And I got 2 examples. So first one was you asked for examples where students should have been doing driving initiatives, and instead adults are at the forefront of the efforts. ASB's canned food drive and FBLA activities used to be proud of building the kids towards leadership and responsibility. When the PTSA does all the muscle work of organizing, promoting, and executing, how are the students owning this and gaining growth? The PTSA basically took over those projects. So again, thank you for the specificity here. I did go and talk to our FBLA and ASB advisors. And in this particular one, the staff member said, hey, from what my officers in charge of the community service project shared with me, the PTSA was great and so helpful. Students were not able to help with the actual distribution of clothes to families, since this needed to be more confidential for the families in need. I totally get and respect that. My leaders had no issue with this. So again, they were definitely a team effort, and it was something that was encouraged. So the kids didn't feel pushed out, and the FBLA or the PTSA was happy to help out. And oops, what happened to my other? I'm going the wrong way. There we go. Example number 2 was, can the multicultural event go back to being student driven and only student attended event? Why is the PTSA taking over? And again, after talking with our ASB staff, the kids actually went out of their way to go work with the PTSA. And so they've been actually seeking out some partnerships with them, and this is with their suggestion that they do something together. It is also part of the goals of PTSA is to have a more inclusive, more diverse leadership group and membership, and so they're trying to put their money where their mouth is and working with our ASB kids on the Multicultural Week. So again, in both these cases, the kids wanted and or invited the PTSA into that. So again, I hope that explains a little bit more as to why that looked like the way it did. There was a rather long posting about, and I'm not going to go into all of it, but basically the basic gist of it was, the KN95 masks that we hand out are inferior to the N95s. So why are we handing these to kids? We should be handing them out the N95s. The KN95s are not made in America, blah, all this kind of stuff. So, and I will concede that the KN95 masks are not as effective as the N95s. The N95 is sort of the top of the line. That's the Ferrari. KN95s are a step or 2 below that. But they're certainly better than a lot of the other resources that are out there. And so, again, the N95s in the beginning of the pandemic were really hard to get. And so they were saying, please reserve those for healthcare workers. And they're still saying that because there are still healthcare workers that are dealing with, COVID and having to fight things in the hospital. We may not as much as it used to be, but they don't want to, let that supply go away. And so they don't want them to fall short. So the KN95s, but there's even some KF94s that are out there, other ones like that that are kind of a little bit below that. But again, they are much higher rated than surgical masks by themselves, cloth masks, or no mask at all. So again, when we're talking about what we need to use out there, the KN95s are, there's a big supply of them. They can be purchased for a good price. They are more effective. And one thing is they're also reusable. So that was something that we thought would be helpful. And so again, that's why we put it out there. I will admit also, you do not need to use those masks if you don't wish to, but that is what we are providing to students and staff. If you are going to use something else, please make sure it's a higher quality. If you have the N95s, go ahead, feel free to use those. If you're not going to use something that's higher than a KN95, though, we ask that you double mask. And so that could be a surgical mask with a cloth mask over it, or 2 surgical masks, but something along those lines would be great. So we're not going away from the KN95s. There was also, I think, a statement here about like, when are we going to stop requiring masks? And again, that's a pretty simple question. It's when the county tells us we don't have to do that anymore. So we are following county directive as we do. Now, we have gone a little bit farther and are requiring it when folks are outside. But again, that's because our students are always in close proximity to each other. And it's not like you're walking down the street of San Francisco, walking past somebody for a second. These are folks that are standing together, eating together, talking, laughing, joking, jumping around each other. So that's why the masks are outside as well, too. Oops, did I miss something? No, that's right there. So let you know that there was some questions out there about mid-year reports. What are they? Why, are they been sent out? What do I need to do? Mid-year reports are the first semester transcripts. A lot of colleges request those because they want to see how students are doing, because they may have just preliminary grades, so they want to see where the grades are right now. But it is something that gets automatically triggered through Naviance, where your student, when they've applied for certain colleges, they check certain boxes. It just becomes a spreadsheet. It's an automatic thing that we do. We kind of start with like the early decision folks and sort of move through to or actually we start with the National Merit Scholars and the early decision folks and the regular decisions and the regular decisions, and we move through that way. But they all usually have dates between the February 11th to February 14th this year in terms of when these need to be turned into the colleges. We were able to get them all out last week. And so they're all actually done and gone 2 weeks early. So we definitely had a concern because we had some illnesses happen in our department, just like folks are having across the area. And so we were down a few people. So we kind of closed ranks and did all the work we did, but we had a lot of great work from our college and career counselor who was able to get that done and taken care of. So those have all been sent out. No need to worry about them. There was another posting that had concerns about lockdown and talking about not the run, hide, defend lockdowns, but the lockdown from COVID. And again, we're not in a lockdown. So I'm not sure why this one came up at this point, other than their concern was that lockdowns were not healthy for kids. They would treat kids, there'd be a lot of negative results of these. And there definitely is studies about some of the negative results of having to lock down. But again, at that time, our options were pretty limited. We either went into a lockdown or we came to school with unvaccinated people before we had even done our HVAC upgrades, before that we had even done anything, with masking or any of that kind of stuff. And so, there were high rates of hospitalization and death occurring at those times. So that's why that was a better option than facing COVID in that regard. So, again, that's why those were happening. And again, this wasn't a decision that the school made. It wasn't a decision that our district made. It was a decision that the county made in terms of the health department telling us what to do. So again, we follow their direction, and whether you agree or disagree with them, that's up to you and each individual. We don't have the right to disagree with them. We have to follow what they're telling us to do. There was also a concern listed about the Epitaph and saying it was too left-leaning, and that it should be more inclusive and have more different points of view and that kind of thing. And while I don't disagree necessarily with that statement that it should be open to all and inclusive and that kind of stuff, student newspapers do have the same freedoms and protections that any other media outlet has, whether it's the New York Times or the Los Altos Town Crier, or whether it's ABC News or Instagram or whatever it is. They have the same rights and protections. And even though they're a school related activity, there are no staff member, their advisor, the principal, anybody can censor or dictate what they must or cannot write about. There was actually a big case, I think I talked about this once before, there's a big case at Homestead where the principal years ago in the 80s refused to let the Epitaph actually write a story about a student who had AIDS. And the Epitaph fought it and went all the way to, I think, one of the Supreme Courts, and they won. And again, it's very much in their right to write what they wish and not have to be censored. Now, we do advise, we do talk to them about things. I meet with the editors weekly, as a matter of fact, and so we talk about a lot of things. I'm a former journalism major, and I actually did some freelance journalism, and I was a journalism teacher myself. And as principal, it's a little bit different to be, seeing it from this end. But again, I think our Epitaph does a great job. They are a learning newspaper, they're a student newspaper, but they have those same rights and protections. And I would say, just like any other media outlet, if you have a question or a concern or something you'd like to bring up to their attention, you need to contact their editorial board and voice your concern in a letter to the editor. And they definitely take those, and they publish some of them online. Some of them are in their hard copy. But again, that's probably the most effective way to get your voice heard in terms of what you think they should be doing. That brings us all the way down to our important dates. I had been talking about the course information videos being released today, Friday. Actually, there was a little bit of a delay because of some of those illnesses and whatnot. They're going to be released on Monday, the 2/6. So they'll still have plenty of time to go ahead and take a look at those, because on the 15th and the 18th, if you jump down a couple slots there, you'll see that's when there's going to be course information, question and answers during tutorial. You watch the videos before then, and you can log on to Zooms and ask teachers questions about that before you really start checking and doing your course selection, which is down towards the end of February. I know I jumped around a little bit there, but there is an 8th grade information night coming up next week, 2/9. There's a little fun in there. There's a whole bunch of sporting events. So again, check our calendar, see what different sporting events are happening if you want to come see some of those. We got the Homestead Orchestra Festival happening on the 12th. There are a couple of Cash for College workshops. This is where those of you who are interested in learning about FAFSA and other financial aid for colleges, this would be great places for you to start to learn. But there's one on February 14th, there's one on the 16th and the 28th. Obviously, if you missed the one on the 14th because you're celebrating Valentine's Day, you can go to any of the other ones. You can go to all 3 of them if you want, but pretty much going to be some of the same information, I believe. We have the end of the 4th quarter grading period coming up. So again, progress reports, not final grades, progress reports coming up on the 18th. So you still got a couple weeks for that. So you might want to jump on Schoology and go through that with your students and say, hey, how are we doing? Looks like you're missing this or missing that. You should talk to the teacher if you've turned it in and it's not graded, those kinds of things. So maybe help get them a little bit more motivated to make sure that their progress report grades are looking good. Because again, some of you athletes and others who are doing activities may need to have passing grades for us to be able to qualify to be eligible for sports and for different events and activities. So please make sure that you're doing that. And we do have our February break coming up. No school the entire week of February 21st. So again, thank you everybody for sending in your comments and questions and shout outs. Looking forward to hearing more next week. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks and take care.